The English-speaking part of Cameroon is in deep trouble because there's a great deal of discrimination against those people by the majority who are French-speaking. They're getting very little of the wealth or very little of the business investment and that sort of thing, so they are very angry. Secondly, when they voted under the United Nations to join the French-speaking Cameroon, they came in as a federal independent state, and they had their own legislator and their own chief of state, and they only shared the currency and the foreign policy and the defense. In 1972, the federal government had a referendum to unite, and of course this was illegal because this minority never wanted to be united totally with the rest of Cameroon, so they were just smothered and taken into Cameroon. They're very angry about it.
The security and humanitarian conditions in Cameroon's northwest and southwest regions have significantly deteriorated since the last UNOCA briefing to the Security Council in June. Violence continues to escalate, obstructing vital humanitarian aid delivery to over 430,000 IDPs and blocking health and education services to rural children. Mr. President, October was the most violent month on record in Cameroon in recent years, and judging from anecdotal reports, we fear that November will surpass October as the bloodiest month on record. We don't want to see that horrible trend continue again this month in December. The violence must stop now. Violence between government and Anglophone separatists has resulted in killings and abductions of civilians, including a U.S. missionary who was killed on October 30th. Faced with mounting insecurity, tens of thousands of Cameroonians have fled to neighboring Nigeria, as we've heard, while hundreds of thousands have been internally displaced and need humanitarian assistance. The stakes in Cameroon are too high for this crisis to continue unaddressed. Cameroon remains an essential security partner in the fight against Boko Haram and the Islamic State in West Africa, including as a member of the multinational Joint Task Force. The continuing crisis threatens to detract from our mutual security objectives in the Lake Chad Basin. Mr. President, the United States calls for an immediate and broad-based reconciliatory dialogue without preconditions between the government of Cameroon and separatists in the northwest and southwest regions. We urge all sides to forswear violence, to restore peace, and to resolve their grievances through political dialogue. The government has done little to address concerns over its own lack of respect for humanitarian principles of neutrality and impartiality, and the guarantees of unhindered access to conflict-affected populations. We urge the government of Cameroon to prioritize respect for humanitarian principles and to ensure unobstructed access for UN agencies and humanitarian NGOs assisting conflict-affected populations.
The Trump administration is committed to protecting and promoting the God-given dignity and freedom of every human being. Every individual has rights that are inherent and inviolable. They are given by God and not by government. Because of that, no government must take them away. For decades, the United States has led global efforts to promote human rights, often through multilateral institutions. While we have seen improvements in certain human rights situations, for far too long we have waited while that progress comes too slowly, or in some cases, never comes. Too many commitments have gone unfulfilled. President Trump wants to move the ball forward. From day one, he has called out institutions or countries who say one thing and do another, and that's precisely the problem at the Human Rights Council. As President Trump said at the UN General Assembly, it is a massive source of embarrassment to the United Nations that some governments with egregious human rights records sit on the Human Rights Council. We have no doubt that there was once a noble vision for this council. But today we need to be honest. The Human Rights Council is a poor defender of human rights. Worse than that, the Human Rights Council has become an exercise in shameless hypocrisy, with many of the world's worst human rights abuses going ignored, and some of the world's most serious offenders sitting on the council itself. The only thing worse than a council that does almost nothing to protect human rights is a council that covers for human rights abuses and is therefore an obstacle to progress and an impediment to change. The Human Rights Council enables abuses by absolving wrongdoers through silence and falsely condemning those who have committed no offense. A mere look around the world today demonstrates that the Council has failed in its stated objectives. Its membership includes authoritarian governments with unambiguous and abhorrent human rights records, such as the United States has no opposition in principle to multilateral bodies working to protect human rights. We desire to work with our allies and partners on this critical objective that reflects America's commitment to freedom. But when organizations undermine our national interests and our allies, we will not be complicit. When they seek to infringe on our national sovereignty, we will not be silent. The United States, which leads the world in humanitarian assistance, and whose service members have sacrificed life and limb to free millions from oppression and tyranny, will not take lectures from hypocritical bodies and institutions as America selflessly give their blood and treasure to help the defenseless. Ambassador Haley has spent more than a year trying to reform the Human Rights Council.
For too long, the Human Rights Council has been a protector of human rights abusers and a cesspool of political bias. Regrettably, it is now clear that our call for reform was not heeded. Human rights abusers continue to serve on and be elected to the Council. The world's most inhumane regimes continue to escape scrutiny.
The last thing we need, given the challenges in the region, is for a disproportionate response by security forces to result in the growing radicalization and hardening of separatist groups. We urge the government of Cameroon to prioritize respect for humanitarian principles and to ensure unobstructed access for UN agencies and humanitarian NGOs assisting conflict-affected populations.
America has a proud legacy as a champion of human rights, a proud legacy as the world's largest provider of humanitarian aid, and a proud legacy of liberating oppressed people and defeating tyranny throughout the world. While we do not seek to impose the American system on anyone else, we do support the rights of all people to have freedoms bestowed on them by their Creator.
We must not forget what French Cameroon wants to achieve out of this degree of terrorism. They believe that by slaughtering our people and roasting them like logs of wood in our faces, that fear will engulf us all, that we will get demoralized, that we will be weakened, discouraged, disillusioned, and then finally surrender. That is the agenda they want to achieve. We cannot give it to them. We must deny them over our dead bodies. We must let them know that fear and surrender isn't anymore in our vocabulary as far as the prosecution of this war is concerned. The people massacred and roasted in Bali must not be allowed to sleep for a moment in their tombs thinking that we surrender, that we let them to be sacrificed in vain. These killings, if anything, must only resurrect in us anger and determination to withstand and to confront the Republic of Cameroon for as long as they refuse to pack their tools and leave our country, our territory, our Ambazonia. Nothing short of this. We must stand. For God is on our side. Thanks for watching. Long live Ambazonia. Short live the struggle. God bless you